This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right, so today on the show, I have Brad Milford, and he is the founder of Brilliance, LLC, and has done a few different things in his life over the years. So welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks, Gabe. Happy to be here. It's an honor.
Absolutely.
Love the show. Happy to be on it.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was funny the other day. Wally Carmichael was on the show, and he's like, I was listening to the show the other day, and I was like, man, I'd really like to be on that show. And then the calendar appointment reminder came, and he's like, I am on that show. So it's kind of funny. But you and I first connected on Facebook somewhere. I don't know who introduced us or if we just found each other. But I was immediately really impressed with like the depth of, thought and kind of how you look at things and your focus on getting total clarity. So we're going to talk about that. And we'll also talk a little bit about my experience in working with you, which was really incredible. But before we do that, when did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
Oh, well, so you beat me to it. I was going to tell a story anyway. When I was 7, actually. So I think often entrepreneurs find some type of entrepreneurship early on. So, when I was 5, 6, 7, I was collecting pop bottles and taking them down to the local market and that kind of stuff. I think it starts there for a lot of people. And then beyond that, right in that same year when I was 7, actually, my stepfather and my mom split up, and I didn't know why. I mean, at that age, you don't know the details, but I knew one thing. And so there's an integrated story here. I knew that I was having trouble connecting with people and that I was alone all the time. And I wasn't getting the love that I needed. Mm-hmm. And so that set me on a path. So you have business on the one side and you have, this feeling like, hey, I don't know how to gain the attention that I deserve and get the worthiness that I need at that age. And so that set me on a very clear path, which I didn't figure out until later in a long search. I'll save the long story for that. I like to do that in my public speaking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at a very early age. Beyond that, I moved into I had 3 paper routes when I was a kid, and I did something different in order to save the customers money and also get more lumps of money at one time. And then, I changed the marquee on the local movie theater. I was working in the kitchen when I was 14, of restaurants. Oops, I probably shouldn't say that live. But that's how it was back then.
Yeah.
Running numbers. I was doing all kinds of stuff, that was business oriented back then. This is many years ago when things were a little more acceptable. And that led into having my own landscape company right around the age of 14. And I sold that for a pretty large profit, a couple $1,000 for a kid. That's pretty good. That led into many more things. I tell a little story about 7 mountains, because each one, you feel like you get to the top of the mountain, right? And then you look over there and you say, oh, wait a minute.
There's another one.
Bigger mountain. And that's it. And entrepreneurs know exactly what that feels like.
Yeah.
We always feel like we're at the top of the mountain, and then there's a bigger one. And 9 lives, because I feel like I'm pretty darn close to my 9th life.
Totally agree with all that.
I knew that would resonate.
So sure that you made it. You arrived, and then you're like, fuck.
Exactly. And that is usually what people say too. That is the exact exclamation.
But then like, all right, I enjoyed the challenge of the last one. Why the hell not? We'll try this too.
We often pause though and look, do we really want to climb that next mountain, or do we want to stay where we are? Yeah. All those questions are super important.
And definitely 9 lives. I have survived literally and figuratively many things that you would never think that you could ever survive as a person.
Yeah, I think that's why we connect so well, because we both had some pretty colorful pasts.
Yeah, definitely. As I think about like where you started out, and obviously a lot of adversity, and we have a lot in common that we've talked about, one-on-one and on some lives before too, I think. Do you think it's adversity and poverty that drives people into entrepreneurship commonly? Because it kind of sounds like it was a little bit of that for you, because I hear that a lot. Or is it something much, much deeper? Is it the drive for significance and self-worth? Or I know you've thought about these things, so that's why I'm asking you.
I have. I wasn't expecting this question, but I love it. I love that kind of stuff. So, I think I follow entirely. So that's interesting that you asked that question, because that leads to the very story that I began at 7 years old. So the entrepreneurship and my own story, they intertwine. And I realize this is a podcast, so I can't draw anything, but but it's cool but they intertwine, they interweave with each other throughout life, back and forth, back and forth. I'm sure somebody can picture, weaving a tapestry or whatever. And the clearer those stories and you can put them out into the world, the faster your business grows as well. So for me, it's mindset, message, and meaning. But to go back to your question in the beginning, so I didn't know how to feel worthy or loved. And so I was searching for something. So I was chasing attention. Then I went into the military. And because I realized it wasn't attention or shock, because in my younger years, that's what I was doing. I was just trying to shock people. I was trying to get attention. I was a little bit of a class clown. I was well known for that kind of thing. All things that did not lead to what I really wanted, right? They led me away from it. So I was trying to sort that out. And then I thought, well, you know what? I traveled a little bit. I went selling up and down the coast. That was pretty successful business for that time. But I really liked travel, and I wanted to expand my knowledge. So I thought, how can I do that without being independently wealthy, right?
Yeah.
So I joined the Navy. And there I thought, I know it's not attention. Maybe it's camaraderie. I didn't use that term at that age, but maybe it's like teamwork. I just need to be around some brothers, And so I thought that was the answer. So you see, I was still searching, and that was a great experience. And I won't go into depth on that. There were some great experiences. There were some scary experiences. It was I went through a lot, but I was also a cryptologist, so I went through a ton of training. I went through SEER training and aircrew training and search and rescue training. I mean, some awesome stories from that. It was fantastic. It was also some scary times of death and whatnot. But I got out after just under 6 years. It was a great experience. And then, lo and behold, I realized it wasn't camaraderie. What was it? I had to go back to my roots. It has to be entrepreneurship. I need achievement. It has to be achievement. It's going to be achievement. And then achievement I'll condense the story, but achievement led to, money and power. And then I thought those were the answers, right? And I just kept searching. I was like, one of these is the answer for what I'm looking for. And so, I could go into depths on all those, but it wasn't. So I'm that guy that came to the metaphorical mountain after, for about 15 years, I ran 3 multi-million-dollar companies, 8 figures total, but that's not the important piece. The important piece is what was going on with me while I was doing those things, because those searches led me to points that were not where I wanted to be. They were not in line. They were not aligned with who I am. And so condensed virgin, I realized that, and I made some changes in my life, and those changes involved character building and leadership. And then I thought leadership was the answer, but it wasn't. Although all those things are pieces. So they're great pieces. And if you know how to tell the story of those, that makes for fascinating stories, but none of them were really the answer. The answer to entrepreneurship really, I think, for a lot of people lies in worth. They're chasing, a lot of entrepreneurs are chasing significance, quite honestly, to get right down to the need. But that usually transforms over time into, there's a transformation there into contribution. And it's really love and contribution tends to be the drivers of the people who are really super successful. Not necessarily money, but fulfillment as well as money. So it's not an either or, it's an and. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Money is always a byproduct if you do it right.
And yes, you can tell by my answer, I've thought about this once or twice.
I like it. I think big realization in the moment, not that I didn't know this, but I'm able to articulate it clearly, is that I was deeply insecure for most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all around worth. So that's very interesting.
I think it is for most people. When you come to that realization, and that's one of the fascinating things. If we can scroll back for just a moment, if it's okay with you,
Mm-hmm.
I want to explain what Build Brilliance is, because that's not a very descriptive name. And just for anybody listening that has not seen what I do or has no idea what that means, I'm going to give just a brief description. So I believe brilliance is something that we carry inside us. Some people call it, purpose, but I have very specific and very true beliefs about chasing purpose. I think there's a lot of people out there chasing it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something you find. I think it's something that you design, create, and build. And I tend to help people be able to do that in their lives. So building brilliance for me is not about academia. I believe there's levels to life and business. Quickly, those levels are, and maybe you'll find this of value as well, but I think your listeners will. This is my belief and what I've discovered through owning multiple companies. The first level is struggle. So a lot of people are in that area, or they're want to be preneurs, or they're solopreneurs, and they're struggling. There's so many pieces to put together for that puzzle, right? And they don't even know what the end result is because they haven't gotten there yet, and they don't have that to look back into. So that's struggle. And the next level is structure. So when you begin to be an entrepreneur and you really understand the processes and strategies and systems, and you're sorting all those out, and you start to see what those puzzle pieces are, you start to put them together. The next level is striving. And we've probably all experienced some of that before. That's when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're just on fire, right? And you have these ideas and they're flowing and you're like in the zone, people call it, and all that kind of stuff, right? It's an exciting time. And we get glimpses of those that help us up level. Like those are great moments. If we capture them, we put them on paper, and we sort through them and they become organized, we begin to move up to higher levels. Some of those higher levels, I believe, are success. So above striving is when you actually get success. And in my belief and in my opinion, too many people are out there. I see this constantly. And I have a fortunate view because of some of the things I've been through. It's all about perspective, right? When we're ahead of somebody on the path, we're able to help them drastically, be able to condense that time. But too many people are out there. They're actually in the struggle, but they're striving for success. So they've skipped a few levels, and they're out there broadcasting their message, and they're out there, doing a lot of things without clarity, and they're really just hurting themselves rather than helping themselves. But there's a couple levels, in my opinion, that people don't know about, much higher than success. There's mastery, there's excellence, and there's what I call brilliance. And beyond that is what is the genius zone. So when we think about geniuses, like real geniuses, I don't want to mention too many names. I'm sure somebody can think of somebody that's important to them. That's the highest level. But brilliance to me is when you've pulled everything out of you, you've actually designed a story, you've created you understand your meaning, you understand your mindset, and you understand your message in a way that you're thriving in your business. You've got all those processes, everything's down, and your stories as well. You're in your brilliance zone. So, and that's a very powerful place to be when a person is there, because everything is aligned. Life, business, all your roles, everything. That's a beautiful place to be. And not many people get there. So thanks for bearing with me, but hopefully that will paint a picture on a canvas of what I actually do.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Can you just name the levels again?
Yeah, absolutely. There's struggle, structure, striving, success, mastery, excellence, brilliance, and genius. Cool. So those are mine. I mean, you can believe them or not believe them, but I found them to be, there's massive results in the people that I coach, and I found them to be super successful for people. So
yeah.
It just gives a format for people to think about.
No, I like it. I did miss one of the early ones. So yeah, I like that. I think it's, I think what people don't have is a clear roadmap of how to become successful. They don't have a definition of what successful is for them, because my success is not yours.
Right.
there's a lot there. And I really enjoyed our last coaching session. I was very impressed by a couple things. One is that you're laser focused and you can go as fast as somebody wants to go. And I like going super fucking fast. Rachel said something to me the other day. She's like, you need like 1, maybe 2 meetings with people and you've got it down.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, from an understanding level, obviously mastery is different, but understanding what needs to happen. So I was just really impressed that it wasn't like, oh, don't worry, we only have to do 8 sessions to answer 1 question. But I knew you knew I wouldn't tolerate that.
That is not what I do at all. That is so far from what I believe in.
Yeah. And I see a lot of other people, you know, giving testimonials or sharing about what you do. And it's definitely like the repeating theme is like laser focused, powerful impact in an efficient manner, which is super important in life and especially business. It's like, I don't have time to sit around and think about solving this. Let's just solve it.
Right. That's one of the things I dig. So I am a deep thinker, and I realized about 10, 15 years ago that I could utilize that superpower, that strength to actually help people. So I don't just have to be in the thinking mode. I'm super intentional. I've had people say, you're the most intentional guy I've ever met. And I love that compliment because I do tend to be that way. I am laser focused, but it's for a very particular reason. I'm trying to solve a problem so that I can help the people who are behind me. And I'm reaching up at the same time to the next level for myself and my business. Yeah. So it's condensing the time for people. That's what it's all about. If I can, it took me 10 years, 6 hardcore years. Look, I'll just be transparent. I'm that weird guy with the things on the wall, the paper all over the walls and the things and all lined out and organized and, you know, strings going from here to there. Like, I'm that guy. I was a cryptologist in the Navy as part of the way my mind works. I'm always thinking on tiers and levels and how does this fit together? And it's just part of who I am. So it took me 6 years to design a coaching program that's not an out-of-the-box coaching program that you buy and you take 6 weeks. And then you're like, you know, because that drives me nuts. It drives me crazy. So I was like, how do I solve this problem? Mm-hmm. I solved the problem by coming up with a platform and a system to be able to meet people where they are, not try to push something on them. It drives me nuts when people are like, wow, I'm a coach. Oh, what are you coaching? Well, I don't know. I'm just a coach, or I'm a life coach, or I'm this coach. And I'm like, well, so what's your platform? What do you do? They're like, well, I'm certified so-and-so. I won't use any names. That drives me nuts. I'm like, so you learned all this stuff in like a couple weeks and now you're a coach? Hit me up when you've had a few failures, you've lost your business, you've gone bankrupt, you've had a few fires, you've been all over the world, and you've helped people, you know, come to 6, 7, 8 figures, or you've changed their mindset in their life forever. Then hit me back up and we'll talk. Yeah. So I went on a little rant there for a quick second.
Totally agree with that.
But what I was saying though is that that took me 6 years. Mm-hmm. I used that process, that same process. I mapped that out. I journaled while I was doing it. Use that same process to do what I'm doing in business now. It's taken me 16 months. So I'm at an up level point right now where I'm automating. Thank you. We'll be talking more about that. Where things are being automated, and that's going to take me to the next level because I've had proven results, but I need some more automation. Mm-hmm. Plug for Gabe. And you know, that'll take me to the next level. So what took me 6 years now took me 16 months. What took me 6 years, I can take somebody through in 3 months. That's one hell of a savings.
Yeah.
What took me 16 months now, I can do in about a month or month to 2 months. I don't have it proven yet, but I'm working diligently in that area. That's a hell of a savings. That's called value.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know what that is.
I would agree with that too. The other thing, I don't think we've talked about the cryptology, so we're going to have another show about that.
Okay.
Because I'm in, or at least another conversation. But setting that aside from it, the other thing that really stood out to me, it relates to the cryptology actually, is you just have a high level of discernment. And I know you know that's one of your gifts, but like
I do.
You have the ability to sense what's going on very quickly. Since our session, I don't know, a while ago, And over the course of this year, I've been really focused in on my intuition or discernment or whatever label you want to put on it. They're in the same family, at least.
Yeah.
And I believe that a lot of times we don't tap into that or pay attention to it, so we short ourselves out of using it. And then I also believe that high level discernment comes from massive amounts of data input. So why don't you take it from there? What is discernment to you? What is it, your gift on it? Because you have a very strong, and how do people get there, and where does it come from, and all that good stuff?
So I think that there's a lot. I think I will preface this by saying this is my experience, and that's pretty obvious, but people have strong opinions around this. So when you talk discernment, a lot of people will go spiritual. And, some people are resistant to that and all that kind of stuff. So I want to kind of keep the conversation open for anybody listening, regardless of what they think, because I am a firm believer of not pushing my beliefs on anyone. I like the openness because I work with people from all around the world with a variety of different beliefs. So I just want to preface that first. Yeah. But I do believe that spirituality has something to do with it. Very simply, I believe there's I don't want to go too deep with this in a short program, but I believe there's three levels. So there's spiritual, there's mental, and there's physical. So to keep it super simple. So I believe that discernment hits on all of those levels. Okay. So it hits on a spiritual level, and discernment can be spiritual. Now, I'm not just talking about religion. I'm talking about spirituality, like the things flowing through us, whatever that is. So that can be spiritual, like the field of intentions, for example. There's a massive field of intentions. Massive. You can pull anything you want out of that field of intentions and set an intention for your life, your business, your family. You have from every infinite possibilities to choose from. So let's just start with there for a base. And then mentally, you can do the same thing. So there's a thought, and then a space, and then a thought. And I know I zoomed through that, but think about that. Ponder that for a minute. There's a thought, and a space, and a thought. So in that space, which some people spiritually call the void sometimes, or that, when people meditate on that space, you have the ability to create any thought you want. You have infinite potential to create any next thought with only limited probability. So that probability, I know that's a whole mouthful, but if you think about it, you have a thought and you have a space and you have a thought. You have infinite potential to create anything, but just based on limited probability, which is based on our nurturing and nature and our experiences and all those things. So we're only limited by that, or our chemicals and all that kind of stuff, which I'm going to get to next. Then you have the physical realm of things that we see, our computer screen and this and that and the other thing, and our coffee cups and our whatever, that we actually manifest through all these things. So we manifest from the spiritual and mental realm things into the physical realm. I think discernment comes from understanding some of that, maybe not at that depth, but maneuvering through those areas and understanding how things function. So I'm not suggesting you need to be an engineer, but the more you can be an architect, an engineer, and a builder of your life and understand the framework and those workings, the more discerning you will be, not only for yourself, but the more you understand yourself, the more you understand other people. So I hope that speaks into your question a little bit without going too deep, because I am a pretty deep guy. I mean, I could take it even a couple more notches, but this is probably not the time or place to do it.
No, it's good.
I'm all about building foundations. So if you'll play with me for just a minute, I'll keep this super simple for people who aren't builders, but I know we connect on a kind of a construction level. I'm a foundation guy. That's what I do. That's why it's Build Brilliance, because I believe in foundations. So I think a lot of people, and we'll keep this business oriented, a lot of people are built a business, but they don't have the proper foundation. But they don't know what that foundation is. Nobody ever taught them how to build a foundation and even what the pieces are. So, for example, when you build anything, you build a footer. You dig into the ground and you build a footer. I'll keep this super, like, a little bit constructed, but not too deep. You build a field, you dig into the ground, right? So the ground has all these kinds of nutrients, right? So if we're using this a metaphor for the mind, super quick, you dig a footer. A lot of people just stay in that footer. They don't backfill it with anything. They don't put any concrete in it. If they do put concrete in it, it's solidified in the wrong things. But it's nobody's fault. They should teach us this kind of stuff in school, but they don't. And so, I had to figure it out for myself. But in that footer, when you're actually getting it prepared for concrete, you build what's called a cage. So you build out of rebar, you create a cage, right? Mm-hmm. And that cage uses ties. So there's internal thought, which is self-imposed, and then there's external thought, which is proposed by other. And those are like the ties to the cages. The cages are your beliefs. So all these things tie into our beliefs, right? And then we pour concrete in this footing, right? The foundation of our life. Mm-hmm. And so we pour this concrete in, whether it's the right beliefs or the wrong beliefs, whether they're self-imposed or they're not. And we solidify these things that create a foundation for our lives. And then we begin to build on that. We put columns on, we put beams on, and we put whatever it is you're building, right? And I won't get too deep in that, but the problem is, see, when we put the concrete in there and we solidify it, that creates a paradigm. And these paradigms drive our life day in and day out. And most people have no idea what the foundation is or paradigms that are driving their attitudes and their beliefs, and they don't understand how they work. So discernment comes, in my opinion, from understanding the workings of that and being able to ground yourself. Literally, we are in the physical world. So to be able to ground yourself in a way that says, hey, I get all that and I know how to do that. And the more you're able to do that, the more you understand yourself and you understand other people. And it helps you not only in life, but in business. So I hope that answers your question in an interesting way that your listeners will find of value.
It does. I really like that. I obviously understand that, but I think it's simple and clear. And you should do just like a whole video of construction and talk about those things.
Working on it. I have an event coming up, working on it.
That is visually extremely strong. And I definitely credit my view of the world to construction. Like, because it's easy to understand, like, okay, where do we start? Do we have a model for that? Is there a blueprint? Like, that's how I view the world, inherently and like instinctively, but then with, my training, my experience, that, that was a huge piece of it. And I spent probably 80% of my childhood out in the woods, and there's a lot of order and structure and rooting and grounding, and
there is.
There's incredible design in nature, obviously.
I think a lot of people haven't been, they teach us some of this stuff in school, but I don't believe that they do a good enough job of, well, I don't want to get into the school too much and it being like 30 or 50 years behind, but that's a separate conversation. But I don't think they do a good enough job of explaining how the pathways of integration. So I'm a pattern guy. That goes back to the cryptology thing, which we'll have a conversation about in the future. But I through my lifetime, I begin to see some of these patterns. And I think the more people understand the patterns and how things integrate and they work together, like, spiritual, mental, physical, or how the levels of a business and how all those integrate and those things, when people are able to put labels on those things and understand them at a deeper level, then they can deep dive them. But if they're just out there and there's so many pieces, like I see tons of people chasing shiny objects, and I try to help a lot of those people get zeroed in and focused and clear, and then determine what their struggle is or their biggest challenges, and then create a clear plan and path. That's part of what I do. And it's just those three simple things that can help somebody pretty instantaneously. But there's some kind of pattern that's leading to that they're just not seeing. And it's really that simple. Life is really simple if you understand the workings a little better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've just been fortunate to have, is just a lot of physical experience in the world. and there's a lot of assumptions that people live off of, which are not good, good strong foundations, and then that makes for a difficult life as far as I can tell.
Well, I only know that because I've experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but the people listening don't know. I mean, I've had a hard ass life.
Mm-hmm.
So, through those searches I was talking about earlier, I mean, I didn't just go through those searches. I mean, I've been with bikers. I've been, bars, and I drank too much. And, I've been with the pushers and the dealers, and, I've traveled all over the world. So I've seen some pretty amazing and scary situations that I've had to maneuver myself out of.
Yeah.
Because when my character was not such that it is now, and that was a journey in itself, you begin to see some of those experiences. The question is, from your mindset, message, and meaning, what can you do with it? And that's the amazing thing, that when you really step into your brilliance and understand your worth. So let's go back to worth. So it took me a long time, 40 years, to figure a lot of this stuff out and put the pieces together in an organized fashion to be able to, because there's general knowledge and there's specialized knowledge, right? And it's a lot of entrepreneurship is putting those pieces together. But when you put them together in an organized fashion, that's when you really start hitting success and mastery and excellence and brilliance, because you're able to help other people. It's all about contribution. And quite frankly, with a no bullshit term, all joking aside, just getting right to it, it's all about love, man. And I know that's like, some people are like, oh my God, they just say that. Like, I used to be that guy, but that's where it's at.
I totally agree.
Get out of your head. Just like, it's all about love, man. Love for yourself, love for your family, love for your relationships, love for the people around you, for your clients. I mean, when you start to see things in that way, it's a whole new world opens up.
I totally agree.
I want to throw this one thing out there.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk, so
we're good. I'll cut you off when it's
us
time.
Speakers, we can talk. I ask this question often, and I'll ask this to anybody listening as well. Which is the greatest relationship you have in your life? And I'll pause for a moment for anybody actually listening. But what is the greatest relationship you have in your life? And I've had a variety of answers. I asked this question to a lot of people, wide varieties of people. And I've had all kinds of them. It's my wife, it's my family, it's a God, it's, I've had the gamut of answers. Very few people answer myself.
Yeah. And
the reality is, when your relationship is the best relationship that you have, it's not selfish. When your cup is full and you understand the workings of you are able to help people on such a higher level than most. You're able to give to them, contribute to them, to serve them in the best way and best capacity possible. And so I thought that might be of value to somebody listening, one person out there somewhere.
No, absolutely. That's definitely a key point, that sometimes you get down the road a little bit and you forget that that's where you started, and that's where we all have to start, is self-care, self-love, maybe jackhammering out the bad foundation, putting in a new one.
I do a lot of that for people. I do a lot of that. And we use that metaphor too, because it's so much harder. You, I imagine, have experienced this, and I have too, thousands and thousands of dollars from mistakes. When you have to jackhammer that foundation out and redo it, it's a heck of a lot easier to do it from the foundation up. That's why I love entrepreneurs. If I can grab an entrepreneur in their beginnings and teach them some of this stuff, mindset, message, and meaning, while they're first beginning, or before they get to the 7-level, 8-level figures, then we don't have to affect so many things. Because the reality is, when you redo the foundation, everything changes.
Yep.
Everything changes. It's that live load. The whole thing, the whole structure shifts. But the ultimate outcome is amazing, because it takes you to levels you never even knew existed.
Yeah, then you're rock solid and you're not worried about toppling over, which you topple over fast with no foundation.
Yeah, the reality for anybody listening that has no idea what I'm talking about right now or can't relate is, there's a thing called upper limit problem, right, Gabe?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you structure or restructure, depending on where you are, maybe you have to do some restructuring. One thing I'm going to say is, it's not as hard as people think it is. And
Yeah.
I think that'll resonate with you because you've seen it can be done quickly, actually. But once you do it, you begin to remove some of those upper limit problems you've had all your life. You think things are hard and you have to sacrifice and you have to, all these things that people are like, have been telling you or have quite honestly have misled you. Like you have to work hard and you have to grind and you have to do this. And those are all lies. I'm sorry, but I'm here to tell you they're all lies. So when you're doing what you love and you're working in your brilliance zone, your genius zone, or your mastery level, you're not going to get there unless you absolutely love and you have a burning, burning, burning desire to do this thing. Passion leads into burning desire. When you have a burning desire, it's no longer work. I can work a 20-hour day or even a 24-hour day, and it goes like that. It's like in a split second. I can have a conversation with you about this very thing for like 8 hours straight. We won't, for anybody listening. However, I could.
We could, for sure.
And it would go in like a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Because I'm so passionate about this stuff. It's a burning desire for me.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, you're in the wrong field. If it's feeling like work, you're probably doing something that's not aligned with who you are. Mm-hmm. But it's not that hard to fix. You just have to connect with someone. I don't like to say have to. If you want to resolve the problem, you may want to consider connecting with somebody that understands that. And I'm not saying me. I'm saying anyone who actually understands that framework, that pathway, and how to integrate that in your life in order to get you to that spot, because it's life-changing.
And sometimes it's not that you're doing the wrong work, you're just going about it the wrong way.
Yeah. Just one little piece of that framework sometimes it gets you people biased and skewed, you know. Right. It doesn't mean you have to tear it all down, burn it, and rebuild it. I mean, that's not always the answer.
Sometimes you have a really, really nice car and you're trying to drive on the steel wheels, and if you had tires, you'd be super happy and get where you're going. You're like right there.
Yeah, as opposed to putting diesel in it and then you got to really reconstruct a few things.
Exactly. So in a couple minutes, because I think this is important for everybody listening, because we covered a lot, and sometimes it's important just to see what the destination looks like. What is your self-worth based on now? How do you know you're worthy?
Well, value. So for me, now I don't know this will be true for everyone, but
just for you. Yeah.
You know, for me, I am really focused on love and contribution. So those are some of my needs and where I'm pointed. I actually love the statement, but I know exactly, I'm very intentional. So I know exactly where I'm headed and who I want to help and how I'm doing that. And it's all mapped and all that kind of stuff. So I'm on a very intentional path. And I like helping people who are, you know, doing that same thing, because I believe that I can condense the time and save them from a lot of heartache and a lot of pain, in many ways. So I am, I'm headed there very intentionally. Ask me your question again, because I just went down I'm just like, there's a path I could go, and I don't know if I want to go down it.
In one or two lines.
Yeah.
What is your self-worth based on? Why are you worthy?
So let me tell you this way. And I don't say this from ego. I say this with gratitude and with a lot of love in my heart. I went to Tony Robbins recently, just a couple months ago. And I've hit a point of worth a couple times. I don't think it's one thing one day you go, and then you hit your maximum worth. Mm-hmm. I think you hit it a couple times, because as we level up and you're like, oh, I realize I'm worth more now. Yeah. I have more value to offer people. So for me, it's always attached to what you can serve people, how you can serve people, how you can contribute to them. That's, for me, that's where it is. And I think if people actually pause and think about that, it's usually attached to a person. It's for my son. It's for this. It's for my family. It's for It's because it's the value that we offer them. So worthiness is attached to value. But I was standing at Tony Robbins, and I'm in a stadium full of approximately 10,000 people, and we're doing an exercise about limiting beliefs. And they've got the lights dimmed, and it's a really cool environment. I mean, you got, music going, and I'm like, people are in the mood, and they're like pumped up, and he's giving you a way to remove limited beliefs, which is something I'm super passionate about. It's an area that anybody that knows me knows I'm big in that area. I help a ton of people in that area. And so I was digging it, and I'm standing there and I'm going, I don't have any. I don't have any. Like, I took 10 years. I ripped all that stuff out, and I redid all my foundations, right? I'll condense the story because I did find something with regard to health and whatever the next day when we went through some exercise. But in that moment, I was like, I have restructured everything, but I kept my mind open because I knew I would find something. There would be something. I'm far from perfect. I make lots of mistakes. So I knew I would find something. But that moment for me really helped me step into my worth. If you're in a stadium of 10,000 people, most of which have some serious limiting beliefs, and you've removed most of yours, you're probably worth some value to some people in the world.
Yeah.
So again, I don't mean that in a bragging sense, but I've done some deep work that's of value to contribute to others. Those are the key words. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I have one other thought, and then we'll close it up.
Regarding value, simple formula. Mm-hmm. Simple formula. I know people that don't like math just don't go, like simple. V equals B, as in Bravo, squared. Simple, super simple. Value equals what you bring to the table, so B, times what you become while you're there. So think about that. Think about that at work, in your business, in your family life, in your V equals B squared. It's what you bring to the table. So you come into a relationship and you bring whatever you bring, whether it be baggage or whatever it is, right? But it's multiplied times what you become while you're there. It's the becoming piece that makes the difference. So I hope that's of value to people. That's what value is all about. And I think a lot of people, value is misunderstood.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that a lot of life's meaning is about the work that you're going to do, because there's no growth, there's no achievement, there's no health without work. And so if you're feeling invaluable, you don't have a good foundation, or you're doing the wrong work. And when you have the right foundation and you do the right work, and work is service of others, which is love, then everything works out.
Then it's no longer work.
Yeah. It feels different, but it is work.
No, I agree. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. And agree.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on. I will definitely, everybody go check out buildbrilliance.net. And we'll drop your other links into the show notes when this comes out on iTunes and YouTube. But thank you very much for the time, Brad. And we'll hang out for 1 second after this. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I definitely recommend that you connect with Brad. If you want to solve the right problems quickly, he's the guy to call. So thank you.
It was great. It was an honor to be here. Thanks, Gabe. Yeah, just hit me up on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man.
Is your mind going?
Yeah, I got lots going on, and I have a meeting in 1 minute.
Okay. I like to inspire your mind to think, my friend.
You do. You will get an email of when this is supposed to come out on iTunes and YouTube, and then you'll get an email when it actually does, with a bunch of share links and stuff like that. And I will introduce you to a few other podcasters that may or may not want to have you on, but you're welcome to reach out to them.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so you'll get that, and it's all automated, of course. So do follow up on top of the automation that goes out if somebody looks like a fit for you. And then I don't know, a month or two out, there's a link to rebook and come back on. So
cool.
Plan on that. So awesome. And if you need more help with the event, just hit me up in the next couple of days and we'll talk about that. Okay.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you, my friend.
Absolutely. I will. Thanks, man.
All right. Peace.
All right. Bye.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes For more information, visit today'sbusinessleaders.com.